Myanmar is a nation at war with itself. A brutal military coup in 2021 shattered any semblance of peace, plunging the country into chaos. Today, the mountainous border regions bear witness to a conflict as complex as it is devastating. On one side stands the Tatmadaw, Myanmar's military junta, wielding a legacy of violence and oppression. They are locked in a bitter struggle against a multitude of resistance groups, each fighting for their vision of a free Myanmar. The People's Defense Forces, a patchwork of civilian militias, have risen in defiance of the coup. Armed with whatever weapons they can acquire, they are determined to resist the Tatmadaw's tyranny. Alongside them stand the seasoned fighters of the Kachin Independence Army, the Kuki National Army, and the Chin National Army, ethnic armed groups who have long fought for autonomy and self-determination. Adding another layer to the conflict is the Shan National Army, a powerful ethnic armed group that has sided with the Tatmadaw. Their alliance has tilted the balance of power in the region, further fueling the violence that threatens to consume Myanmar. The fighting is relentless. Every day brings news of fresh clashes, of villages razed, of lives lost. The Tatmadaw, armed with superior firepower and a ruthless disregard for civilian life, unleashes its might against its enemies, both real and perceived. The resistance fighters, outgunned but not outmatched, fight back with a ferocity born of desperation and a deep-seated yearning for freedom. The human cost of this conflict is immeasurable, a tragic tapestry woven with the threads of fear, displacement, and unimaginable suffering. The deafening roar of jet engines shatters the silence of the borderlands. High above, the ominous silhouettes of fighter jets circle menacingly, their presence a constant reminder of the Tatmadaw's deadly reach. With a terrifying inevitability, the bombs begin to fall. The earth trembles as explosions rip through the jungle canopy, sending plumes of smoke and debris billowing skyward. The Tatmadaw's aerial bombardments are a brutal and indiscriminate tactic designed to crush the resistance and instill terror in the hearts of the civilian population. The PDF and their allied groups, lacking any air defense capabilities, are forced to fight from the shadows. They know that any position they hold for too long, any gathering of troops, any sign of activity, risks attracting the deadly attention of the Tatmadaw's bombers. It is an unequal fight, a grim calculus of survival against overwhelming odds. Yet, despite the constant threat from the skies, the resistance fighters cling tenaciously to their positions. They know that their struggle is not just about territory or military objectives, it is about something far greater, the very soul of their nation. In the heart of the conflict zone, the Tamu District Hospital stands as a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. Its corridors, once filled with the bustle of everyday life, are now overflowing with the casualties of war. Every day, ambulances arrive, their sirens wailing a mournful symphony, carrying the wounded and the dying. The hospital staff, working tirelessly under unimaginable pressure, struggle to cope with the relentless influx of patients. Medical supplies, already scarce before the coup, are now dangerously low. Basic medicines, surgical equipment, and even bandages are in critically short supply. Doctors and nurses are forced to make agonizing decisions, prioritizing patients based on the severity of their injuries, knowing that even with the best care, many will not survive. The wounded, many bearing horrific injuries from shrapnel and burns, lie on makeshift beds in overcrowded wards, their faces etched with pain and fear. The hospital, a symbol of resilience and compassion, is a stark reminder of the human cost of this brutal conflict. The conflict in Myanmar is not just a battle between armies, it is a war that has ensnared entire communities. Both the Tatmadaw and the resistance groups, desperate for manpower, have resorted to forced recruitment, tearing young men from their families and thrusting them onto the front lines. Villages are raided in the dead of night. Homes are ransacked, and any man deemed fit to fight is dragged away, their pleas for mercy falling on deaf ears. This brutal practice has had a devastating impact on the social fabric of Myanmar. Families are torn apart, their lives shattered by the constant fear of losing loved ones. Young men, many barely old enough to shave, are forced to exchange their books for guns, their dreams for the nightmare of the battlefield. They are indoctrinated with propaganda, desensitized to violence and turned into instruments of war. The psychological scars of this conflict will run deep, leaving an entire generation traumatized and forever marked by the horrors they have witnessed. In this intricate web of alliances and betrayals that characterizes the conflict in Myanmar, the role of the Shan National Army, or SNA, is particularly significant. As one of the most formidable ethnic armed groups in the country, the SNA's decision to align itself with the Tatmadaw has dramatically altered the balance of power in the region. The SNA's support has provided the Tatmadaw with access to crucial resources, intelligence and manpower, bolstering their grip on Shan State and enabling them to escalate their offensive against the resistance. This alliance, however, is a double-edged sword. While it has undoubtedly strengthened the Tatmadaw's position in the short term, it has also alienated many within the Shan community who view the SNA's collaboration with the military junta as a betrayal of their aspirations for self-determination. The SNA's decision to side with the Tatmadaw has further complicated an already complex conflict, sowing the seeds of division and mistrust within the very communities it claims to represent. Section 6. Holding the line, the PDF's fight against the odds. Despite being outgunned and outmaneuvered by the Tatmadaw, the People's Defense Forces, or PDF, and their allied groups continue to fight with unwavering determination. Taking advantage of the difficult terrain, they have established a network of hidden bases and supply lines, waging a guerrilla war against their better-equipped enemy. Their intimate knowledge of the jungle provides them with a crucial advantage, allowing them to launch surprise attacks and then melt back into the dense undergrowth. The PDF's ranks are filled with ordinary citizens, farmers, shopkeepers, students who have taken up arms to defend their homes and their families. They are driven by a deep-seated hatred for the Tatmadaw and a burning desire for a free and democratic Myanmar. Their courage and tenacity in the face of overwhelming odds serve as a powerful symbol of hope for the millions of Burmese people yearning for an end to the violence. Section 7. Across the border, India grapples with a refugee crisis. The conflict in Myanmar does not end at its borders. The spillover effects of the violence are being felt acutely in neighboring India, particularly in the northeastern states that share a porous border with Myanmar. As the fighting intensifies, tens of thousands of refugees have fled across the border, seeking safety and sanctuary from the horrors of war. India, already grappling with its own internal challenges, now faces a growing humanitarian crisis. The influx of refugees has strained resources and placed immense pressure on local communities. The refugees, many of whom have lost everything, arrive exhausted, traumatized, and in desperate need of food, shelter, and medical attention. The Indian government, along with international aid organizations, is working tirelessly to provide assistance to the refugees, but the needs are overwhelming. Section 8. The world watches international response and calls for peace. The international community has watched the unfolding crisis in Myanmar with growing alarm. Condemnations have been swift and numerous, but concrete action has been slow to materialize. The United Nations has called for an immediate ceasefire and a return to dialogue, but its pleas have fallen on deaf ears. Sanctions imposed by Western countries have had little impact on the Tatmadaw's behavior. Meanwhile, inside Myanmar, the cycle of violence continues unabated. The humanitarian situation is dire, with millions of people facing food insecurity, displacement, and a lack of access to basic services. The conflict has had a devastating impact on the country's economy, plunging millions into poverty and exacerbating existing inequalities. Section 9. A bleak horizon. The future of Myanmar hangs in the balance. As the sun sets over the conflict-ridden borderlands of Myanmar, casting long shadows across a land scarred by violence, the future remains uncertain. The fighting shows no sign of abating, and the humanitarian crisis continues to deepen. The hopes for a swift and peaceful resolution to the conflict seem increasingly distant. The international community must do more to pressure the Tatmadaw to end its reign of terror and engage in meaningful dialogue with the opposition. The people of Myanmar deserve a future free from fear, oppression and violence. Until then, the world will continue to watch, hearts heavy with the knowledge that the fate of a nation hangs precariously in the balance.